it would be, because, of course, there's always mention of the weight of the ANC in comparison to the other smaller parties. There's just such a big difference in terms of margin and voting outcomes. But the point is, there would be enough to secure a majority. And is it likely then to lead to a more stable government than what we have seen between the ANC and the DA? Your reflections on that, especially if that is an avenue that political parties could well be exploring. Of course, they've all denied that their conversations have been about anything more than the VAT. I don't know. When I was watching that press conference yesterday, I wasn't convinced. I think that there is potentially a situation where everybody's keeping their options open and, having the kind of conversations that test and see, well, what is actually possible? That's just some food for thought, and I'd love to hear your thinking about that. Would you support the idea of a reconfiguration of the GNU with the ANC and some of the smaller parties, as they have done with the issue around the fiscal framework and the opposition effectively to the VAT? You can share some of your thoughts on that on the open line as we work our way through to 10 o'clock. Coming up on the show today, within the 10 o'clock hour, we're going to be looking at China's response to the U.S. trade war. What we have seen in the last couple of weeks since President Donald Trump announced the tariffs against China is somewhat of a backtracking on those announcements, right? And stalling, kicking the can further down the road around when exactly some of these tariffs will come into play. But it seems that China, of course, has been preparing for such an onslaught. At the same time, however, the President Xi Jinping is warning that protectionism is going to lead nowhere. And he's calling on countries to not sign a deal to appease the U.S. This is in relation to some of these trade wars. So we'll be reflecting then on China's position because the impact of this tariff war is significant, not only for those countries, but for supply chains the world over, because they're such an integral part of some of these production lines that we speak of. And then the final hour of the show, we finally get to put our feet up. It's the Friday wind down, and this is what you can expect today on the show.
Hey, what's up? This is Ed Soul. Catch me this Friday with Cathy Mohlahlana on the Friday wind down at 11 a.m. I can't wait. We'll be talking all things South African music and also throwing forward and speaking about the Soul Sessions event featuring Louis Vega happening in May. Don't miss it. Tune in. Peace.
It's the catch of the season as our 3 madcap fishing fanatics are back, embarking on even a more exciting adventures across the globe. Get ready for bigger fish, bigger laughs, and more extreme destinations in a series packed with adrenaline-fueled fishing antics and plenty of friendly rivalry. Fishing Impossible Season 2, Fridays at 10 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Rise and Shine are not willing to drop their heads as they chase victory to maintain a good top half position. But Matsatsansa Pitori are in a deep hunt for 3 points to escape from danger. Catch the exciting battle of Mzansi's football, Polokwane City FC versus Supersport United FC on Saturday, 26 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Then at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, let's get started then with the national conversation. 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. David, you're out in Mpumalanga. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Becky, not David, rather, in Mpumalanga. It's my very first time to call on your show.
Sorry, David. I missed what you said.
I say I'm Becky.
Oh, you're
Mpumalanga.
Becky in Mpumalanga. Okay. Apologies for that. Apologies,
No
Becky.
No problem. I'm a first caller on your show. I always call on Tula's show because Mkaya wami.
He is your Mkaya. He is your Mkaya. Well, welcome to the open line, Becky. What do you want to talk about this morning?
I'm a little bit worried about the GNU issues. When one has to critically think the purpose of the GNU, what really was it? And secondly, I would say that the African National Congress as the ruling party, or the party that at least had majority votes but doesn't meet the quorum to govern the country, they were supposed to engage robust with the progressive forces. And I'll tell you why, Cathy. You know, the interest of the people must be put first. Despite of whatever differences, some people need to humble themselves and look at the goals that they have to achieve. It's an open secret that we know the ideologies of the DA, where they're coming from, and you look at their history and their track record, where they're coming from. When you are an old person like myself, to believe and trust that the likes of Tony Leon and Helen Zille will advocate for the interest of black people in South Africa, it leaves much to be desired. I say this because when you go back to history, you'll remember that when things were very tough, people of South Africa, they all vowed to forget their differences, and they affiliated to the Black Conscious Movement that took South Africa where it is today, that made South Africa and opened their mind. They said, irrespective of whatever political party, when parties like UDF, they were banned, then now there must be a strategy and to resort to new mechanisms as to check as to how do we meet and make sure that at the end of the day, we as South Africans will triumph. And definitely, we did triumph. I urge Ubabu Malima, I urge Ubabu Jacob Zuma, I urge Ubabu Cyril Ramaphosa to put their differences aside and start focusing and looking at the needs of the people of South Africa.
Becky,
then we'll have yes, ma'am.
I want to just ask you, so given the reflections that you've said and around the role of progressive parties in the country's history, would you equate the constitution of parties that today describes itself as the progressive party, the progressive forum, or the progressive representatives, that the message that they speak, what they represent, necessarily resonates with the feeling that you are evoking when reflecting about what that meant historically. Are we comparing apples with apples here?
Very much understanding you, but I look at their track record, where they're coming from, and looking at their political schools, where they are coming from, as I'm speaking to these people as progressive forces. Let me cite an example with Julius Malema. Julius Malema has been under the wing of Mama Winnie Mandela. He understands what at heart that lady had for the South Africans. He understands exactly what is meant to be a South African. Equally so to the former President Jacob Zuma, that he fought for this country. You can't, substitute that from him. And equally to the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, without making any comparison. They know what apartheid is. They understand that they were subjected to apartheid. Why now they don't have a common goal and common understanding and put aside all the differences and put the people of South Africa first? That's what I want to say.
Okay. All right. Begin in Mpumalanga. Let's leave it there. Look, I don't know if those parties that are under the progressive forces are necessarily any closer to the ANC today than they were 3 months ago. If anything, I think that there are others that have moved in to fill any potential gaps that the DA may have left. And it's part of the conversation that I want us to have this morning. Solomon, you're in Mkanyagude. Good morning.
Your listeners, thank you for taking my call.
I'm putting on my political hat and I'm expectant of your insights.
Actually, you should not. It's just an opinion from an individual who is keen on these developments. And I think it's just Pyrrhic victory for DA to ascend the platform and shout at its highest voice to say it has won anything for South Africans for the reversal of 0.05% VAT hike. And I think we should rejoice that the parties that met yesterday, despite their differences, but there is commonality when you look at their membership and constituency. And we pray that such cooperation and collaboration can grow to an extent of taking this budget forward, implementing it. Now that the debacle about 0.05 has gone and has happened and is now buried, the focus, I think, of President Ramaphosa and his team, either in the GNU or the recent colleagues that they met with yesterday. The focus is that they should implement the budget because they said it's a pro-poor budget. There is 100 billion investment in infrastructure development, which should stimulate the economic growth and create jobs and be able to come up with a more healthier kind of GDP and fiscal so that we can have more money to expend on the priorities that we have. Really, I think parties that have chosen to go to court have demonstrated what is it that they stand for more than what we always thought they represent. For DA to put on the altar of convenience that they were going to support the 0.05% hike on the basis or on the grounds that there is a repeal or the withdrawal of NHI expropriation bill, Bella Act, the change in terms of the foreign policy by the government. I think it was too much. It said more about their attitude towards the transformation in the country. We are in agreement, all of us, despite whatever mistakes, that government has to cut short the wastage. We are all in agreement that there's too much wastage in our government. But to go to an extent of frustrating and disabling the only instrument at the disposal of our people to bring about better life. That is our aspiration. I think it was too much for the DA.
But Solomon, they say that they were not being heard in the way that they needed to be as a partner in the GNU. And the perception that creates then is that the ANC wants to work with parties where it feels it's got a bit more leverage.
Yeah, but take the case of Action SA, which said we are going to support you to pass the budget framework, but do away with VAT. They were not like stalling and causing chaos in the whole country. Take South Africa without a budget, having not passed the budget. We have seen municipalities that have failed to pass the budget, and we have seen the chaos that has unfolded. So DA was like desiring to see such a case. They should have done the same to say, because now the date in Parliament is set, we will support you, but do not implement this. And there were a number of options because
Okay, Solomon, we're going to have to leave it there, but you've made the point. It's just after 9:30. Let's take you to the news desk.
Good morning. In the headlines, the EFF is adamant Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana should resign, accusing him of posing a threat to the country's economic stability. The South African National Taxi Council has defended government's decision to allocate 408 million rand from the COVID-19 relief fund to the taxi industry. And a man originally from Rwanda has been arrested in the US. He was allegedly involved in the 1994 Rwandan genocide. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
Hey gorgeous, want to keep your glam game strong and your bank account happy? It's time for big beauty savings at Dis-Chem. We're talking next level flawless skin with a whopping 30% off Eucerin, Neutroderma, Dermactin and Bioderma, and 20% off the hottest beauty brands like L'Oreal, Revlon, Yardley, Maybelline, LA Girl, Palladio, all in one place. Shop big beauty savings at Dis-Chem and slay while you save. Hurry, deals end 11 May.
The Red Devils want to add more heat in Cairo to make life difficult for Masandawana, but Kabuyelo refused to shake and break. They are on a mission to elevate their game and march to the final with big smiles. It is do or die. This is the second leg semi-final encounter of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Catch the incredible action of African football. Al Ahly FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns FC. This Friday, 25 April at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
He's short, loud, and definitely not a licensed therapist, but he's asking the hard questions. It's Heart to Heart with Kevin, the only talk show where the guests spill the tea and Kevin spills the jokes. Real talk, real laughs, and real short host. Heart to Heart with Kevin, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on S3.
Stay ahead of the financial game. Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights on SAFM Market Update. Brought to you by SIPS, the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, shaping the future of procurement one smart decision at a time.
For a 40% party, if we want to attract our supporters who decided not to go and vote for us, we must project to them a strong and united African National Congress.
If the Communist Party stands on its own, it will definitely have an impact on the alliance. So that is why we are not in this emotional roller coaster hambuzobuya. Siyamcenga udali hlala uyabona. So because this will not be rewarding to us.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
We continue the conversation on the open line. Yeah, just a note for those of you that are out on the road. We've got some reports from our listeners just about how bad the situation is in parts of Durban. We heard Rob Byrne also reporting on that during the morning session with Tula Sizwe. So please just be safe out on the road, keep a lookout. And as he said, if you don't have to go anywhere, rather stay put. And I'm just saying that to note some of the pictures and messages that some of you are sending to us about the state of the roads in some parts of Durban this morning. So our next callers, I'm actually excited. I'm excited about our callers that we're putting on air up next. So you remember on Valentine's Day, we received a call from Letabo, who is the neighbor of a couple that he says he admired so much. It's a couple that the community, looks up to. They watch their love, and it inspires everybody around them because they're so resilient. But he said they, since they've been married, they hadn't had an opportunity to go on honeymoon, and he wanted to know if there was anything that could be done. So we reached out to our good friends at Sanctuary Mandela, and a very big thank you to Sanctuary Mandela and Ndate Jerry for making this possible. They extended a voucher to the couple, which is Mpho and Elizabeth, to go and have a stay there and, just celebrate their love. So they called in earlier on in the week to say they need to give their report back. Mpho and Elizabeth, good morning. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
So let's talk about your mini honeymoon that you got to experience at Sanctuary Mandela. Elizabeth, do you want to tell us about it?
It was phenomenal. Like, we didn't even believe. When we get there, everybody was waiting for us. They opened doors for us, gave us complimentary drinks. Like, everything was perfect. They were so welcoming.
Mpho, how was the experience for you?
It was amazing. And it's not a mini honeymoon. When you say a mini, it was not mini, it was amazing. It was something that I haven't seen before. We stayed at what is in that room?
It was really fast, the second room.
The second biggest room, which it was the original room from the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
We stayed at the second biggest room, which it was the three part of the rooms that was kept the way they were.
Yeah.
They didn't. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds absolutely amazing. I think you're right, Mpho. I shouldn't call it a mini honeymoon.
No.
That was.
It was a proper honeymoon.
Yes.
And Mpho, of course, Elizabeth shared the story about how you are visually impaired. Did you find that they were able to cater for you? You didn't struggle getting around? Everything was quite easy?
I didn't struggle. Everything was quite easy. Even the waiters, when they give me a drink, they'll give it straight to my hand. But it was like I felt special.
It was home.
It was home, yeah.
Oh, man, I'm so glad that you guys got to go and experience this. And again, we're so inspired by your story, and we're absolutely grateful that we were able to do something that makes just your lives a little easier, makes you guys feel a bit more appreciated. So how many years are we going for now? We need... we're going to go back to Sanctuary Mandela when we're celebrating what? The 20th anniversary or the 30th anniversary?
20 years, because now we are going on 15 years. We met in 2011. So this year it was 14 years of us being together. I met her when she was still doing grade 12. Yeah, she was finishing her exam in grade 12. That's when we met.
So we're going for 20 years, right? So 20-year anniversary. You'll probably have another host for the talking point, but we will definitely make sure that you will get to go to Sanctuary Mandela again. So you must call into the show and say, Cathy promised that this is what would happen.
Yeah, no, that was amazing.
Yes, no, that was amazing. It was amazing. Like the thought of sharing the same meals that Utata had loved before. Like we even get a chance to meet Mama Buiswa and Doyini. It was very nice.
Yeah, and the kitchen there is quite good, isn't it? The
Yes.
tail is just through the roof.
You know, the food, I felt like I could see what we were eating because it was amazing. Hey.
Paul, I love that. You felt like you could see what you were eating. I love
Hey,
it.
yeah,
Well,
no.
you could. Technically, you could. Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful.
I could taste the good food. Yeah, it was amazing.
Thank you guys so much for coming on the show and for calling back to tell us about how the experience has been. I'm sorry we couldn't take you earlier on in the week, but I'm glad that at least we're able to put you on air today. That is Paul and Elizabeth. They are our Valentine's Day couple. And again, a big thank you to the guys at Sanctuary Mandela who have made it possible. Like I said, a shout out to Ntate Jerry. Thank you so much for your organizing. A big shout out also to who am I forgetting? Is it Gregory as well? I think the manager there. I think it's Gregory, but if I'm wrong on that, I'll correct myself shortly. So yeah, what a lovely story to inspire us all on a Friday. Okay, let me continue then with taking more of your calls. Pule, you're out in Matlosana. Good morning.
Cathy, two things. The VAT issue is out of the table. It's fine. Where is our department going to spend their money? You budget, then you spend. So where are they going to get the money to spend? The expenditure. Because you budget first, after budget you allocate money to the department and say the school is this much, the research is this much, grocery is this much. But in the absence of budget, how are you going to spend the money? Because there's no money allocated to you to spend. True, Cathy. Last year, members of parliament received 2.5% increase. This year, that kicked on the 1st of April, they received 5.5% and they never complained, all of them. And who's feeding them are the poor of the poorest because they are paying tax. I've just bought bread today, I've paid tax. And I'm feeding them. On my salary, I'm paying tax, I'm feeding them. They never complain when they receive salary increase. Last year, it was 2.5%. This year, that is kicked on the 1st of April. It's 5.5%. That is kicked in. And they've never complained. Don't you see hypocrisy on them? That they are speaking on behalf of the poor of the poorest. When they get increase, they don't think about the poor of the poorest.
And Bule, I don't think it will be wrong to argue that hypocrisy began at the genesis of the GNU when there was an announcement of this, very bloated cabinet. And none of the parties actually came out to say we are concerned, at least not those that were part of the GNU. And since then, they've been very muted on the subject, if you notice. You don't hear them calling for a reduction of cabinet sizes.
You don't hear that. DA was vocal talking about it. Olomisa was vocal saying the cabinet is bigger than even the cabinet of Trump. But now they are in the bigger scheme of things. They are not talking about it.
Even when you look at an area like VIP protection, Bulen, this is one of the stories that we'll do in the next couple of weeks, just to break down the budget that was tabled by the police yesterday. We have yet another increase in terms of allocations to VIP protection in this country, a significant chunk of the budget, by the way. And parties such as the DA that had long criticized the use of the motorcades, etc., Well,
They
today
are
their ministers are using those as well. You
absolutely.
don't hear them crying foul over it.
And who's feeding them are the taxpayers. And everybody in South Africa, you buy milk, we put petrol, we are paying tax, and we don't get anything in return.
Yeah.
And it goes to their pocket, but they don't complain. They don't talk anything about it. The hypocrisy in the highest order of the Malemas, the MK, Zuma just got increase now, presidential increase. They're not talking anything. Or the president, even Mbeki have received presidential package and increase. They are not talking about it.
Okay. Pule and Matlosana, let's leave things there as we continue on the open line. So let me just correct myself. I knew that I was saying something incorrect. So the general manager at Century Mandela, Vincent Munyake, thank you guys so much, Vincent. And of course, Ntate Jerry Mabena, who made sure that all of this became possible. He responded on the day that our Valentine's Day couple was on air. So we really, really, really appreciate what you guys were able to do for Elizabeth and Mpho. Mlenze, you're out in KZN. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy. Cathy, I want to talk to you about the VAT and the visit of Ukraine president in South Africa. On VAT increase, Cathy, I'll hit on a few political parties. One political party which I called about last time here when I called you with regards to VAT increase was the IFP president, Shabisa. We've got video clips of him. We were listening to him on the radios and TVs, where he was so excited in talking about the VAT increase of 0.5% this year and subsequently another 0.5% the following year. And he was saying the poorest of the poor, the marginalized, will benefit from that thing. Now it has collapsed, and they are coming back and say, we never voted for VAT increase. I mean, the old man who sounds and look very much of a man of the highest prestige can just make a 360-degree turn like that. I mean, what does that say about their political party? And then again, on the DA side, the DA, they think we, all South Africans here, they think we are dwarfs. We don't think we don't have a brain. The DA is represented in the National Treasury Office. The Deputy Minister of Finance is a DA member. When you are a deputy, surely you touch base with the person that you're deputizing, because you are there to add an extra pair of ears, extra pair of eyes, extra box of brain to brainstorm and deliberate about anything that you are intending to implement in the country as far as the economy and developing the country's economy is concerned. But DA, what they did, they went out and rushed to court to interdict their own decision, because one of their own is sitting there in the National Treasury's office in a form of a deputy minister. That is the highest hypocrisy of anything that you can think of. And also,
is it hypocrisy or political strategy? Because, of course, all of these parties are pursuing their political interests.
Okay. You see, Cathy, you can say it's a political strategy, but it's a political strategy that will appeal to naive individuals, not a person who grow up to political structures like myself, not a person who grew up from a family that was political oriented. Even if I was not political oriented, but I'm grown up, I've got an eyes, I read books, I see what they're talking about in the media, on TV, and I can tell what is their constituency. It's a hypocrisy of a highest order from a DA side. Unfortunately, our kids that you are giving birth to them today, when they listen to these DA people, African people who are in DA, they think, they are smart because they are talking in tongues. Not like me, because I was studying from a township. I'm not talking in tongues here. I'm talking a pure English, which can be understood by anyone. But I may not appeal to these young kids, whom we are calling them 2000s. I mean, 2Ks, because they see these DA people talking in tongues, and they think they are smart. to be a DA and having a DA presenting all these things that they are presenting to us as South Africans and think they are representing us as the poorest of the poor, that is wrong, totally wrong. Let me just let me move quickly to the Ukraine president visit here.
Very briefly, Mlenze, I've got a break to take.
Yes, I'm going to be very brief. You see, we still owe Baba President Jacob Zuma for leading us and helping to establish what we call BRICS Plus now. It was BRICS, now it's called BRICS because other countries have joined. We still owe our being and economic posture to him for letting us to be part of BRICS. Now, guess what? Ukraine, which is not part of BRICS, is at war with our fundamental component of BRICS, which is Russia. Now, what do you have now? You've got the fight. I may not have all the details between the fight between Russia and Ukraine.
Okay.
But what I know is that Ukraine is perceived by Russia as bringing the enemies of Russia closer to Russia.
Okay, Mlenze,
the visit now of Ukraine president. Okay, the visit now of Ukraine president.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Seagulls believe their fighting spirit will match their style of football as they chase valuable points.
Pedro in front of the Leicester fans against Hermanson, and he rolls it home. João Pedro gives Albion the lead.
While the Hammers have a big task to prevail away from home.
Clips it in there, and Bowen! And West Ham United have turned this game around.
This is the Premier League. Catch the nail-biting action. Brighton and Hove Albion versus West Ham United FC on Saturday 26 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The confession booth. A place where the sin-laden soul can offload their transgressions, all in the hopes of finding reprieve for their sins. Stolen your co-worker's lunch? Then the ordinary confession booth with your regular priest will do. But murdered your long-time nemesis and dumped their body in a vat of acid? Oh, then you better hope you're not in Father Brown's confession booth, because he is bent on catching all the bad guys. Tune in to Father Brown, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m, only on S3. Open up.
S3.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric, mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
What is your money doing right now? Is it lazing around in that other account because you're not sure where to move it for premium growth? Well, let's make it work hard in a Standard Bank Money Market Select investment account, where we'll grow it with a nominal interest of up to 7.9% on a minimum deposit of 100,000 Rand. Plus, you get access to your funds anytime. Open yours online or on our app today. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
All right, let's continue taking your calls. I'm going to try to squeeze in as many of them in the time that remains. Arthur, you're in Pongola. Good morning. Good morning, Arthur. All right, I can't hear Arthur there. All right, it looks like there's an issue with Arthur there. Let me try Magweja in Cape Town. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy, and
Yes,
good morning
sir.
to SAFM listeners. Cathy, I'm going to be quick.
I'm just ndicela nje ilanto ki-traffic officers ne-law enforcement maybe bamamele eCape Town. I'm traveling with a bus, of which we are just next to airport in Butcher Square Road. There is the only 2 bus stops there, and the taxis are just occupying those bus stops, and there is a 2 lanes. If those taxis occupy those bus stops, we try to stop the bus will stop in the middle of the road. Now it's causing a problem. But those guys, if you can go to rank and then you park your car, they will just take you out from there. My problem is each and everywhere they park, they own that space. No one is going to tell them. If the traffic officer can go maybe 3 until 4, they will see what I'm talking about. We struggle. We've got Kailicha bus, we've got Harare, we've got Mitchell's Play bus who are passing them. If 3 buses come at the same time, those buses will struggle, and then they will just park on the middle of the road, which is they are causing a traffic jam. That's all what I want to say, Cathy.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that point, Magwega. We need more policing effectively around taxi drivers and taxi owners is what he is saying. Colin, you're in Cape Town. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Cathy, your voice disappears on the radio sometimes. Soft in the background, and it comes loud again. I gotta turn the volume up and then down again. I don't know what's going on there.
That's definitely not right. Where in Cape Town are you listening from?
Yeah, Ronbosch East.
Okay, so what?
Yeah, no, not every day, but sometimes, your voice disappears. It's soft. I can hear it. I put the volume up. And then all of a sudden you come closer to the mic or something, then it's loud again, I'll return down again. So I don't know what's happening. Anyway, Cathy, morning. Everybody, I'm listening to the radio, everybody seems to be claiming victory, Oh, it's through us that we won, And as far as I know, at the GMN parties like Good Party, Al-Jamaa and the rest, Rising Zanzi and UDM, all voted for the tax, the VAT, So now, it's quite puzzling now. All the parties are coming and saying, we did this, we did that, and all this and that. I think what changed the minister's mind was the court case. As far as I know, it was only the EFF and the DA that opposed the VAT. You see?
Yeah, Colin, I don't think that's the truest reflection of what has unfolded. Yes, the DA and the EFF were the ones to challenge this through court, but I don't think it's necessarily true to suggest that the other parties who voted to pass the fiscal framework were not opposed to VAT. We know that they were. It was very clear that they voted for the fiscal framework with the understanding that there would be some form of concession where that is concerned.
Yeah, but I doubt if the minister would have listened to Action SA, the 30 days he gave. I doubt the minister would have overrode that, you know what I mean? There was no evidence, no documentations, nothing signed. It was like an agreement. We'll give you 30 days. I think the minister wouldn't have worried about that. He would have went ahead.
I guess now we'll never know, will we, Colin?
Yes. Now, Action SA was on the radio, I saw a show. No, we won it. We did this. We did that. The court case, I think, made the minister backtrack.
Colin, even the MK party is claiming that.
Yes, they also claiming.
VAT has been
the court case by the DA actually, I think, won the case. Cathy, what I wanted to ask you quickly, Herman Mashaba spoke last year, November, October, the Lily mine. He reckons he's going to get the people out. He's going to use his own money and get those bodies out of the Lily mine. I wonder how far that is.
Yeah, look, we'll have to do a follow up. What I know is that the Action SA has been sort of very committed to the issue around Lily Mine.
Yes.
Since their formation, it's one of the issues that they've stayed with. given the costs of trying to retrieve that container and how many years it has been, one would think that it's going to be an extremely costly exercise, but worth following up on nonetheless.
But Herman Mashaba said on radio, even if I use my own money, I will get those people out. And it just went dead. Thank you, Cathy.
Okay, Colin out in Cape Town.
Bye.
We'll leave it there. That brings us to the end of the first hour of the show. So up next then, we'll take you to the news desk and we're back on the other side of this.
In our top stories, EFF calls for resignation of Godongwana and Santaco defends COVID-19 relief fund payments. Good morning. The EFF is adamant Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana should resign, accusing him of posing a threat to the country's economic stability. This comes after the reversal of the highly contentious 0.5 percentage point VAT hike, which was due to take effect on the 1st of next month. The party is also demanding the resignation of the National Treasury Director General, Dr. Duncan Peterse. EFF senior researcher Dr. Gumani Chimumola says Godongwana contravened the Public Finance Management Act requirement when he failed to table a budget before the end of the financial year.
A budget is such an important government instrument to ensure that there's continuity of service delivery, there's certainty in the economy and the market, business people know what they're dealing with. But in this instance, both the Minister and the Director General of the National Treasury, Duncan, are unable to present a credible, believable, and also a budget that will find consensus in the National Assembly and in the National Council of Provinces. And we call for his resignation because as things stand now, South Africa does not have a budget before Parliament, which we can analyze, interrogate, agree, disagree, because he has withdrawn everything that he has tabled.
Meanwhile, Agri-Western Cape says increasing VAT would have affected consumers' disposable income. CEO Yannis Stradum.
Per definition, food security does not only refer to the availability of sufficient quality produce or food, but also to the affordability of that food.
The South African National Taxi Council has defended government's decision to allocate 408 million rand from the COVID-19 relief fund to the taxi industry. This after Build One South Africa questioned the once-off gratuity which was allocated in the 2025-2026 budget. Responding to a parliamentary question by Musi Maimane, the Transport Minister Barbara Creecy said Cabinet had approved an ex gratia payment to assist taxi operators affected by the COVID-19 restrictions in 2021. However, not all the beneficiaries have been able to access the funds. Santaco's national spokesperson Rebecca Pala.
The taxi industry is currently experiencing a big problem of operating license backlogs. So some operators at the time when the funds were initially announced did not have their operating licenses, and as a result of that, because it's one of the biggest prerequisites for one to be able to apply, they couldn't do that. So it's one of the reasons why it's only being distributed now. But I mean, they've also been hardest hit, just as with everybody else. So we're not too certain why it's being questioned in that way, because it's not like it's just being given to just about everyone. It's being given to deserving operators.
The Water and Sanitation Department says it has opened the 5th and 6th sluice gates at the Vaal Dam. It says the aim is to manage high water inflows the recent heavy rainfall has caused. The department also says it plans to increase outflows from both the Bloemhof and Vaal dams to mitigate against the rising water levels. The department spokesperson, Wisani Mavasa, has urged those who live near the dams to relocate to safer areas.
The controlled and uncontrolled water releases at all these dams will lead to overtopping of riverbanks downstream of the Orange and the Vaal rivers, resulting in flooding of settlements that are in the lower lying areas within 1 in 100-year flood lines. People living within the flood line downstream of the Vaal Orange as well as the Blue Mouth dams have had to evacuate, and they should continue to avoid these flooded areas as the river catchments remain oversaturated.
And finally, a man originally from Rwanda has been arrested in the US. Faustin Nsabu Mukunzi was allegedly involved in the 1994 Rwandan genocide. He's accused of concealing his role in the violence and making false statements to enter the US as a refugee, then apply for permanent residency and citizenship. If found guilty, he could face up to 30 years in prison. Recapping the top story, the EFF is adamant Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana should resign, accusing him of posing a threat to the country's economic stability. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.5 FM in Stellenbosch.
Meet Maria. Meet her family, the Ramirez. One wrong step and they will have you swimming with the fishes. Meet Amadeo, a trained lawyer and member of the rival business clan, the Mateus. The two fall in love and Maria's dreams of a happily ever after change when Madeo is murdered at their wedding. Their daughter, Jo, despises her mother's humble beginnings and will do anything to steal all of Maria's fortune. This is the world of Sweet Diva. Airs weekdays at 4:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Fadlu Davis is back home to finish what he started in East Africa. But Steve Barker and his boys believe they can find an equalizer in their own backyard. Stellies collides with Wekumbu Wamsimbazi. This is the second leg semi-final battle of the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Catch the spectacular contest of African football. Stellenbosch FC versus Simba Sports Club. This Sunday, 27 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
The Full Circle.
What is it that these scammers rely on to hook people, to get us in there and have us believing that this must be legit?
I think what they're relying on is, to a large extent, desperation. I think most of us in South Africa today are looking at, making, if we haven't got a side hustle, at least sort of making a little bit of money on the side, or trying to make our current investments go a bit further. And I think these scammers are relying on that.
Roy Retief, Head of Operations at the Southern African Fraud Prevention Service.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM. All podcasts can be downloaded on safm.co.za. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
It's 9 after 10 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of The Talking Point. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be taking a closer look at this trade war, the US-China trade war, but in particular, the Chinese response to this trade war and what all of it means for global supply chains. And are we likely to see any continued scaling down of some of what have been the pronouncements by the US President Donald Trump? Before we get into that, your WhatsApp voice notes from the open line.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Hi, very good morning, Kerry. It's Johnson here in Bombela. You see, in this country, there are two things that are not working for us. Firstly, it is the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 96. This Constitution is not pro-poor, and it will never work for the poor. It will never work for the people, the majority of the people in this country. Secondly, the political system within which we operate under, that is not working for us. The situation we're faced with will never change in this country.
Good morning. In light of all these cases that are coming to light about abuse, whether it's for children or it's for women, I'm thinking that maybe it would be a good idea for pastors, teachers, taxi drivers, bus drivers, scholar transport drivers to be vetted. You know, before you get this job, you need to be vetted to see if you are clean. Otherwise, then you shouldn't get this job. I'm just thinking maybe it would help us, because right now we have these dangerous people that are driving Ubers and driving our kids around and stuff like that. Thank you.
Good morning, Cathy. Siphumelele here in Mount Elif. Look, I totally agree with what Mr. Beki there in Mpumalanga was saying. He's spot on. I think it's time that our leaders from the different political parties set aside their differences and focus more on what unites them instead of what divides them. Because if you look at their track record, as he says, most of these aversions and differences developed post-apartheid, pre-democracy. All of these leaders were in one. They were united. Why? Because they shared a common enemy. I think it's time they reify the transformation and all the social ills that South Africa is faced with, and look at these as their common enemy and stop fighting each other. Instead, let them join hands and move South Africa forward.
Good morning, Cathy. Thanks for a lovely show. You know, you had a caller a moment ago that spoke about the progressive forces. You know, these people are so regressive in their thinking, and their ideology is so backward, and they can't move forward with the times. And I'm not saying that the past regime was anything other than a crime against humanity. It was disgusting. It was reprehensible. But do we really believe what the progressive forces have in mind? All he's got to do is watch a podcast by Bonsai Shongwe, and he will tell you about those three parties. And my goodness, it speaks volumes. So, yeah, that's my message to him. Thank you. Bye.
The Seagulls believe their fighting spirit will match their style of football as they chase valuable points.
Pedro in front of the Leicester fans against Hermanson, and he rolls it home. João Pedro gives Albion the lead.
While the Hammers have a big task to prevail away from home.
Clips it in there, and Bowen! And West Ham United have turned this game around.
This is the Premier League. Catch the nail-biting action. Brighton and Hove Albion versus West Ham United FC on Saturday, 26 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC+. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Stay ahead of the financial game. Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights on SAFM Market Update. Brought to you by SIPS, the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, shaping the future of procurement one smart decision at a time.
Hi, I'm Khomotso Cathy Mohlahlana, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide with me, KG Mohlahlana. because where words fail, music speaks.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
You're listening to The Talking Point. In this hour, we're unpacking China's response to the U.S. trade war. The Chinese President Xi Jinping warning that protectionism will lead nowhere. He's now called on countries to not sign trade deals to appease the U.S. The Chinese head of state has been on a 3-nation working trip through Southeast Asia. It's made a concerted effort to expand trade relations and presenting itself as a stable partner in the global economy given the instability of tariff announcements by Washington. So the Chinese President Xi Jinping has visited Vietnam, Malaysia and Cambodia as they seek to offset the impact of these U.S. tariffs. They've also been linked to new trade deals in Kenya and in Mexico. Just in the last 24 hours, the Chinese also dismissing U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal to bring down tariffs if they negotiate a new trade deal. So we're going to be unpacking some of these responses that we're seeing from China and how this is perhaps a moment of opportunity for the global south and how this pivotal moment will contribute to the geopolitical landscape. Joining us for this conversation is Professor Patrick Bond, Distinguished Professor of Sociology and Director at the Centre of Social Change at the University of Johannesburg. Professor Bond, good morning.
It's great to be with you, Cathy, and with the other guests and your listeners.
Dr. Marvelous Ngundu is a research consultant at African Futures Initiatives at the Institute of Security Studies. Dr. Ngundu, good morning.
Morning, Cathy, and good morning to your listeners.
And Seppo Matseba is a managing director at Reputation First Group, and he, of course, is going to be speaking then to the reputation aspect of all that we see unfold. Seppo, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Cathy, for inviting me. It's so good to speak. It's been a while.
Thanks for that, Seppo. So maybe, Dr. Ngundu, let me begin with you, and you can share some of your reflections of just what we have seen unfold as part of this trade war. You know, when it all started, it seemed that, okay, President Trump is sort of doing what he wants and the whole world has to brace itself to see how each country will individually be affected. It was really with the announcement around tariffs that we began to see the full potential in as far as the escalation of the situation, because we saw China willing to go toe-to-toe with the U.S. and matching whatever tariffs were being imposed against it.
Oh, yes, Cathy. You are right. It started like that, but perhaps we should bear in mind that this didn't start with the Trump second administration. It started with the first administration in 2018. So, in my opinion, China is trying to play a victim narrative in this, but it also has some sort of significant impact in the trade imbalance as much as U.S.-China trade is concerned. So the U.S. has imposed these new tariffs targeting strategic sectors like electric vehicles, semiconductors, and solar technology. A move that has stemmed from long-standing concerns over the trade imbalance between the U.S. and China. But it's also a move that is targeted to protect things like intellectual property rights and also the national security. I'll give, for example, in 2004, the U.S. recorded trade deficit with all its 5 top trading partners and China remained the most significant contributor of that trade deficit. And the trade deficit between China has grown from just US 10 million in 1985 up to close to 300 billion in 2024, with the historical peak of over 400 billion in 2018. So this persistent imbalance set the stage of Trump's revived protectionist agenda. But on the other side, of course, the move is deeply geopolitical, like you said. It's part of a broader push to contain China's rise, particularly in high-tech industry, and also to reduce America's dependence on the Chinese supply chains. Thank you, Cathy.
Patrick, when we look at the almost stepping back of the U.S. president when it comes to the imposition of these tariffs, we also see that China itself is granting exemptions, at least on some U.S. imports. It's clear that how the rhetoric at a political level plays out is very different to then having to deal with the economic consequences of what those decisions that are announced, what they mean for not only countries' economies, but also supply chains which affect companies, which affect people within these countries.
Yes, and Marvelous is exactly right that this Chinese trade surplus with the United States grew and grew. But there was one area where the United States has been maybe the world leader, that is semiconductors, integrated circuits. And in that process, in which the U.S. has a very, very tight global value chain, companies like Apple were able to get Trump to end some of the electronics tariffs, as well as there have been some other concessions by Trump. But yes, this morning we learned that Xi Jinping says this is indeed a case where the electronics are going to be coming in, those semiconductors, to China without tariffs. So it's a back and forth. But the most important thing is that China is standing up. It wasn't one of the 75 countries that Donald Trump said, in his own words, a couple of weeks ago, were kissing my ass. In other words, we're bowing down. I fear that South Africa was one of those for lots of reasons, and I don't think it works. And I think what China has done by standing up is extremely valuable.
I'm chuckling, Patrick, because when I saw the clip that you're referencing of the U.S. president making those remarks, it was just so unbelievable to me that a head of state of any country could stand up and not only say what he said, but the way in which he was saying it. And you think, this guy still has to go into formal meetings with these other heads of states. He still has to show a level of decorum and respect when he's traveling the world. But certainly one doesn't get a sense that there is much respect from Donald Trump and for some of his counterparts in different parts of the world.
Oh, absolutely right, Cathy, and we've seen that. Maybe Jepo will come on reputation management, because Trump's reputation is, amongst most people in the world, that of a brutal bully, crude, and with his New York upbringing. I actually went to the same university that he did, the Wharton School of Finance at University of Pennsylvania, and they really do teach arrogance and capitalist tricks, financial gimmicks. They wouldn't be happy with the tariff bullying, because that goes against the logic of free trade. But nevertheless, what you do learn insights like that. I was unfortunate to be a student at the Wharton School between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who went there in the early 90s. I was mid-80s. And what you are really taught is brutal greed. Greed is good. In the 1980s, that was their open slogan. What it means for us is that when you read the social media tweets, like the one Saturday last week that said, I'm not coming to the G20. In effect, and he was complaining about South Africa being concerned with Israeli genocide in Palestine and with affirmative action. And just like his foreign minister, Marco Rubio, just like his finance minister, Scott Bessent, they're just doing a boycott. And I think that hatred that the world is now, let's say, gathering up because of so much destruction. Ending the climate negotiations where the U.S. is crucial as the number one historic emitter. Ending support for WHO, massive U.S. aid cuts, cutting 18% of our own HIV prevention and treatment budget, ending food aid in a place like Sudan, which will immediately lead to millions dying. These are the sorts of things that make it, I think, altogether, again, Chepo will correct us if we're wrong, an absolute rock bottom of U.S. reputation. I think it's so bad that if Cyril Ramaphosa had guts, like Xi Jinping is showing, he would have a vote to ask the G19, should Donald Trump be voted off the island, right? Footsec to the United States from the G20 because of this terribly rude behavior, but also destructive behavior on climate, public health, and now international trade.
I don't know if that would be brave or if that would really be setting the cat among the pigeons, Patrick, to have South Africa take such a strong stance. Before I go to Tsepo, Dr. Ngundu, what do you think of Patrick's proposal that perhaps South Africa shouldn't be one of those that is sitting around waiting to be given an audience? Of course, yesterday we know that the president had a conversation with Donald Trump, but do you think that we have the kind of leverage that a China has to be able to stand up against the U.S. in the way that China has and be prepared to deal with whatever consequence may come?
Thank you, Cathy. We definitely not in that position. We definitely haven't reached that level. And remember, Cathy, South Africa is on the red light, given its position on the Gaza conflict. That was against Trump. It's also on the red light given its position on the BRICS Plus initiative for its own currency. It's also on the red light given the land expropriation bill initiative. So any move that South Africa will do against the US, it will be punished for that. And we actually have received a signal. The first batch of tariffs that targeted the South Africa's automobile industry, 25% of those tariffs that are now on hold for the 90 days. It was a communication, or it was a retaliation of the South Africa's position in all these three cases that I've indicated. So any move that South Africa will do, perhaps that goes against the Trump's will, it is likely to suffer, and it will suffer the consequences in terms of trade, also in terms of investment. And one of the things that we should bear in mind is that South Africa has been gaining considerable trade surplus from trading with US, and any disruption in the trade between the two countries is likely to have a severe impact on the trade revenue in South Africa. And now we are drawing closer to the renewal of AGOA, which also has promoted South Africa's exports in the U.S. market. We are all uncertain on what is going to happen, and any move that South Africa will do uncalculatively, it will have a severe impact on that as well. So I really agree with Patrick that South Africa should be strategic in its engagement with both China and the U.S. because it's likely to either create opportunities or severely affect its economy.
Well, the one thing that's clear is that China sees the opportunity, especially if these tariffs are to be imposed, as the U.S. has suggested. The rest of the world is now looking for alternative partners, looking for alternative markets, alternative trade routes. And when we continue, we'll unpack then how China is going about in its strategy and what the likely impact of that might be. Tsepo, I know you're also dying to come on. I'll give you a chance straight after the latest news headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. On the news headlines on SAFM, I am on Dilambana, and a very good morning. Former personal assistant of former Free State Premier Ace Magashule has been granted a request for a trial within a trial in the Asbestos High Court in Bloemfontein. The EFF is adamant that Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana should resign, accusing him of posing a threat to the country's economic stability, and the Water and Sanitation Department says it has opened the 5th and 6th sluice gates at the Foul Dam. It says the aim is to manage high water inflows that the recent heavy rainfall has caused. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 79 to the dollar, 24 rand 96 to the pound, and 21 rand 34 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mixed at the closing bell. The JSE mainly higher during mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe have extended gains. Gold is trading at $3,297, platinum $956 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $66.59 a barrel.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. Hashtag your screen, your story. Together, we make it happen.
After a 0-all draw in Mzansi, the Pyramids are confident they will complete their agenda with victory on home soil. But Rivero's boys believe they will end their long-distance trip to Egypt with an impressive performance. This is the second leg semi-final clash of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Experience the thrilling encounter of African football. Pyramids FC versus Orlando Pirates this Friday, 25 April at 7:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 2 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Your Sunday nights are about to get big on S3. We have some of the biggest movie titles that will take you on adventures that you simply cannot miss. Thomas arrives in a glade at the center of a giant maze. The race to escape the maze leads him to a journey. Should they escape, all questions will be answered. Tune into The Maze Runner, Sunday, the 27th of April. Maze Runner Darth Cure on the 4th of May. Maze Runner The Scorch Trials on the 11th of May. S3 Blockbuster Movies, Sundays at 7 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. We're unpacking China's response to the U.S. tariffs and also how it is seeking to offset some of the impact of those anticipated tariffs by creating and strengthening relationships with different parts of the world. We've already seen it with the visit by President Xi Jinping to Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia, also new trade deals that are anticipated with Kenya, with Mexico, all of it in a bid to stabilize and cushion itself from the impact of these impending hikes. Tsepo Matseba is one of our guests this morning alongside Professor Patrick Bond and Dr. Marvelous Ngundu. Tsepo, let me give you a chance to come in here. Of course, from a public imaging point of view, one gets the sense that for each of these leaders, it's about who's in charge and who the world will see as being in charge. Has China been able to earn itself respect by standing up to the bully, as has been described?
Thank you so much. I think China certainly has taken a posture that says that they understand geopolitics and that they've understood the landscape holistically. Obviously, without any constructive conversation or constructive engagement, reputationally speaking, it's difficult to put President Donald Trump in a room full of individuals, groups, and leaders who are willing to have a discussion about sustainable economic diplomacy. And that's where China got it right, that they are willing to have conversations, but they also have the capacity and the means to unleash weaponry, and not the ones that you've seen through the weapons of mass destruction in inverted commas, but weaponry of global economic engagement where everybody seems to be respected. We don't know whether that's a sustainable proposition, but at least China comes across like they respect everybody, and that's the game they've won. Why does this matter for South Africa specifically? Because we are here, is that we want to, as a country, to continue to be seen to be a transparent economy. We want to be seen to be resilient in nature, and that we want to have the opportunity to protect what some may call our own sovereignty. And in that context, I think that there's a space for the global south, if you want to call them, and importantly for South Africa, to start aggressively reinforcing its message around being a global collaborator, a strategic partner. And clear communication is very important in this context, because for us to strengthen our positioning as a strategically autonomic country and participator, especially in the context of BRICS, we've got to be willing to take some practical steps. That includes doing the right things consistently, because when you're in the middle of a battlefield, you don't want your opponent to say, but you are corrupt, you can't run your energy sector, you can't run logistics. You want to clean up the house, and that's where the three key pillars at the time, I think a year ago, that President Ramaphosa and the business fraternity came up with, that we want to deal with crime and corruption, we want to deal with the energy crisis, and lastly, we want to address speedily the logistics matter. So if you address those three things, you begin to have a discussion in a room without people looking at you saying, but there's a skeleton in your room, you can't even walk, but you want to run, and that type of a debate. So I think there's an opportunity for South Africa to reposition the story and South Africa's alignment with China and South Africa's positioning as a collaborator and not an arrogant partner in the room, because I don't doubt that we can afford arrogance at this stage. In that context, I think there's space and opportunity for China, for BRICS countries, for South Africa specifically, to shift the dial and become sort of seen as a pragmatic and a highly principled protagonist. Not necessarily pro-China or anti-US, but in a sense you want a situation where South Africa becomes seen as a leader in common sense, if we may call it that.
Sure, I like that, how something so basic can be so powerful during crazy times, right? A leader in common sense. And don't we just need more common sense in some of these experiences that we are having? Patrick, if I can come to you then and give you an opportunity to unpack China's strategy and what you are reading and seeing as China's strategy in as far as a potential repositioning is concerned, should things with the US not soften?
Yes, it's very important to have these scenarios. And the one that I think is actually most dangerous for us is that the US-China trade war is like they call it the Smoot-Hawley Act, 1930, that it's a tit-for-tat protectionism that essentially leads to a Great Depression. But there's an even worse immediate threat, which is that China will redirect its massive exports of manufactured goods to South Africa, which is already very, very vulnerable. As you might know, we have an International Trade Administration Commission, ITAC, within the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, and they're regularly putting tariffs on South African imports from China because of the so-called dumping that sort of represents producing and selling to us below their cost of production. And that means, in turn, we have a protectionist tariff policy ourselves, and it's against our BRICS partner China. I'd have surpluses as China.
But Patrick, I'm going to ask you to try and move around a bit. We're losing the connection to you. We're losing you somewhat on the line. Yes, you can continue.
Let's try. Yeah, my basic point, which I think people watching China do understand, that they are so productive that the markets that they're seeking through the Belt and Road Initiative, through BRICS trade and financing deals, these actually aren't even sufficient to deal with this excess capacity. So they're in a very desperate mode, and they're standing up so strongly to Trump, I think reflects that they know they have to continue exports, and that Trump's attempt to bring many companies that operate in China back to the U.S. to do production would really be disastrous for them. But secondly, like Marvelous is saying, we actually do need the sort of costs and benefits. We need to understand, for example, if Trump wants to, say, impose sanctions on China, he puts it up to 145. China goes up to 125. And now they're both pulling back. What is the damage that can be done to South Africa? And for Marvelous, his point is they can wreck our iron and steel and aluminium industries, our petrochemical and automobile exports. But the U.S. is already doing that because they put a 25% tariff on. AGOA doesn't stand a chance in this environment. And on top of that, I think we should look at the costs and benefits of the production. That is the huge electricity that goes into many of the exports to the U.S., which in turn creates lots of CO2 emissions and depletes our raw materials. And we're just not getting a good return because it's companies from Australia, from Luxembourg, from Germany, the coal companies, and they're really exporting profits without reinvesting them properly. I'd make the case that if we do lose AGOA, which it appears is definite, and if we have these tariffs, and by the way, they'll be followed by tariffs from Europe on our CO2 emissions, again in these same industries, we might then redistribute the electricity. We're facing stage 2 at the moment. I think you are as well, Cathy, up in Brixton. And that threat that we're losing so much local labor-intensive production, small business production, household consumption of electricity, which forces, especially those doing the cooking, to use dirty energy. And if we could redistribute and not be so vulnerable to both the US and the EU and the UK on these climate tariffs as well as Trump's tariffs, well, that might be all the better for us, and we might have an economic boom.
Dr. Ngundi, part of what Patrick is saying then, if I'm hearing him clearly, is that we shouldn't be quick to jump up and to, welcome the positioning of China as not only, they're already, of course, a trading partner, but the extent to which we open that relationship up as a result of what is happening. And the point that he makes around the Chinese products that are to a large extent being dumped in South Africa, and that should be a cause of concern for us. Do you take the same lens?
Definitely, I do, Cathy. China's approach has been quite strategic in all this. It has prepared for this since a decade ago. If you want to go to the figures, between 2002 and 2023, Africa's trade deficit with China surged from $2.31 billion to $82.68. And South Africa accounted about 12% of that trade deficit in 2023. So this growing imbalance reflects the surge in Chinese imports in Africa, ranging from consumer electronics, vehicles, office equipment, apparel, household furniture, and stuff like that, which have in some way steadily displaced the local industry. So the ongoing trade war, it strengthens. In fact, it strengthens this trend of continuous and steady growing trade deficit between China and the African countries. And what is more important in this is that the imports that we buy from China are consumables rather than semi-finished goods or machinery that can be used as capital goods within the African context. They are consumables that have got a severe impact in displacing the local industry, especially the small to medium enterprises. So it further undermines Africa's manufacturing base and also constrains its industrial development. Then one key move that China seems to be doing outside Africa, of course, is trying to penetrate the U.S. Market through Mexico. That allows Chinese goods to reach the U.S. market indirectly, like through the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, which they abbreviate as USMCA. So it's also expanding ties with also emerging markets like the Latin America through the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations. And of course the global south, like you indicated. So they are strategic. China is strategic in doing all this. But going back, tying this with what Tsepo indicated, that it's no longer about trade. It's now about global power dynamics. So also while the U.S. is reshaping its industrial base and trying to protect its future competitiveness, but its economic policy is wrapped in a national security concern, and it's happening in a time of rising techno-nationalism. So I'm afraid, like Patrick said, that Africa is falling trap of a dumping ground for the Chinese imports, and these imports are predominantly consumables, displacing the domestic manufacturing industries. It's exacerbating our manufacturing concerns, and the progress that perhaps we have been doing might be regressing in the near future if this trade war continues.
You know, Tsepo, as Marvelous is speaking, I'm thinking about how often the deference that, many people will have is around, let's strengthen BRICS relations, let's strengthen South-to-South relations, and not really pay much attention to, well, what are we truly benefiting out of some of these relationships? And it ultimately comes down to perceptions, including of a country, about what you allow, what you don't allow. How important is that from a global positioning point of view? Because more and more there's this perception that people can come to South Africa, do whatever they want, and they'll be able to get away with it. And in a scenario like this, it of course is not helpful.
Yeah, it's a difficult terrain that we're in, isn't it, South Africa? But if you think about it carefully, without us engaging ourselves in the emotional mantra, because geopolitics is emotional. But if you think, and the fact that the Global South is speaking, and we are putting our agenda out as an people and ecosystem doesn't necessarily mean that we are now equating ourselves to closing doors to others. So when South Africa speaks about, as a nation brand and as a country, about collaborating and partnering with China and within the context of BRICS, it doesn't necessarily mean that we want to close doors to others. Instead, actually, it's more about how do we get new doors opened where there are common values and common interests, and that doesn't mean that anti-US, because whenever as a brand, a nation brand, you articulate yourself in the context of the Donald Trump, some may call it bulliness or abuse of power or abuse of global economics. When you speak, you are likely to be labeled as reinforcing some type of a narrative that says, well, we can do without the U.S. That's not, I think, where South Africa wants to take the discussion, and that we should. I think where we should be taking the discussion is that we are open to other markets, we're open to collaboration, but we recognize ourselves as a sovereign and independent nation, and that we're not going to be governed from under some tree or on some car that's fading away from the universe. Sure. Because even Elon Musk himself has accepted and recognized that the philosophy of that himself and
Tsepo?
President Donald Trump have taken doesn't work.
I'm going to pause you there. We'll continue with you shortly.
Dango, for the love of the game and Mzansi for sure.
Sekwenzenjani?
Soccer Zone has relocated to a new slot, 9 p.m. live every Monday on SABC 1. Mzansi Africa.
Fascinating goals.
The unbelievable saves.
From Africa Borwa to the entire African continent to the Bundesliga and the Premier League.
High-level reviews of crucial match scenarios by the legendary Mr. F.
Top-class analysis. Latest news about the beautiful game.
And Momish of the Week.
SABC Sport Football Weekend ends on Mondays at 9 p.m. on Soccer Zone.
Live on SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The confession booth. A place where the sin-laden soul can offload their transgressions, all in the hopes of finding reprieve for their sins. Stolen your co-worker's lunch? Then the ordinary confession booth with your regular priest will do. But murdered your long-time nemesis and dumped their body in a vat of acid? Oh, then you better hope you're not in Father Brown's confession booth, because he is bent on catching all the bad guys. Tune in to Father Brown, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m, only on S3. Open up. S3.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Dennis, I'm going to pick up from what your organization says, that you believe it's a cooked-up story from within the ANC factions. Why would you think that?
There's a lot of questions that must be answered. In the first place, Ashraf, there is no such a thing that ballistic test is going to take place or have taken place. In the first place is the bullet cartridges that these people are saying when they arrived home, then they saw it was a shooting of a firearm. And all the time they were thinking it's stones.
Dennis Bloom, a spokesperson for Activists and Citizens Forum.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. Tsepo, sorry to interject there. We had to take that break. But let me give you a chance then to conclude those reflections you were sharing with us. Hello, Tsepo?
Sorry, yes, I was sorry about that. I was saying, I think there's maybe one statement or two that I should make before we part ways. But perhaps we don't have to choose between partners. We perhaps need to choose what serves our country and our people, and avoid all reputational risks at all costs, in the sense that we don't have to go and engage in a challenge that we know is not going to be won. We don't have to sing and dance in the mud. We have to communicate clearly and communicate our value proposition and shape the country's reputation really around economic growth, diplomacy, a healthy diplomacy, innovation, youth empowerment, youth employment, small and medium enterprise engagement and support, and importantly, regional integration. How do we use the African Free Continental Area as a yardstick and an instrument to effect change? That's where South Africa's position is going to come from, and not seeing China as a god or father, but rather as a strategic partner that can enable us to come out with volume and impact.
Patrick, are we ready to bring in some of that attitude that is taught, at U.S. universities to actually just pursue our interests very boldly so, without necessarily tiptoeing, afraid to offend, not wanting to make other countries feel some type of way?
Yes. I mean, you're mentioning the Wharton School, where I learned along with Elon Musk and Donald Trump how to be brutal, self-interested, greedy capitalist. Yeah, let's put that aside and say Elon had a head start because he did his high school here in Johannesburg at Bryanston, where he was bullied, as he put it, nearly beat to death. So in training little white boys to run the apartheid system or to run big corporates in Johannesburg, he was already top of the class, and he moved to Pretoria after 2 weeks in hospital, a poor fellow. Now, the point about this, you can't do it alone. Marvelous is right. We're different from China, but you can do it collectively. And we did so in the Hague Group, that is the city in the Netherlands, host to the International Criminal Court, which is under sanctions. And the Hague Group came together in January to say, we will stick up. And there were not just South Africa, Malaysia, Colombia, and 6 other countries. It was a very impressive beginning to saying we can work collectively. And I think with China taking this lead, encouraging countries not to do sleazy deals, like South Africa is apparently considering, giving offshore oil and gas to United States companies instead of to Total and Shell and Petrobras. And I think that becomes the site in July in the BRICS meeting in a place, Rio de Janeiro, we all know so well, where you could get that confidence, and it would be collective work. I think there's only 2 countries, Cathy, in the G20 that would say, no, we're still with Trump, and that's Argentina, led by Javier Milei, and Italy, led by Giorgia Meloni. I think that's the only 2 friends Trump really has in the G20. So, yeah, as I say, let's put onto the table for discussion punishing Trump by denying him the 2026 hosting. I think it maybe should go to Mexico. There's a wonderful president there, Claudia Sheinbaum, and put the kind of reputational, let's say, damage to the U.S. that it's doing in so many concrete ways that Elon Musk shows with the damage done to his own brand, to Tesla. And we need to stand up around the world to do that to Trump, because that's the only language the bullies know.
Patrick, thanks for that. Marvelous, your parting shot.
Yeah, thank you, Cathy. We already seeing that the World Trade Organization is losing its grip as bilateral and regional deals take precedence. The global trade order is fragmenting into blocks, those aligned with the West and those orbiting around China. So it's a seismic shift, especially for small economies caught in the middle, like Africa. But I've one suggestion for Africa, China, and also for the US. Like Tsepo indicated, that there should be some sort of assertive approach to trade negotiations with both the US and the China, and these arrangements must prioritize long-term structural economic transformation over short-term consumer access. Then China, on its part, must recalibrate its trade and investment approach with the African countries. Rather than perpetuating dependency through mass export of cheap goods and import of raw materials, it should promote joint manufacturing ventures, it should also support local assembly operations and also investment in skills development. Then for the U.S., I think renewing and modernizing the AGOA is a vital step if really indeed the global north is serious about the development aspects of the African countries. Thank you, Cathy.
All right. Let me thank you all for your contributions this morning. Dr. Marvelous Ngundu, research consultant at African Futures Initiatives at the ISS, Professor Patrick Bond, Professor of Sociology and Director of the Center for Social Change at UJ, and Tsepo Matseba, Managing Director at Reputation First Group. It's 11 o'clock.
Thank you, Cathy. Top stories at 11. Cholota granted her request for trial within a trial, and 2 more sluice gates opened at the Val Dam. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. The High Court in Bloemfontein has granted the former personal assistant of the former Free State Premier Ace Magashule her request for a trial within a trial in the asbestos case. Murwadi Cholota was extradited from the U.S. in August last year. She has insisted since then that South African courts cannot put her on trial due to the manner in which she was extradited. Judge Philip Lobser said in delivering judgment that the state failed to refer the court to case law that demonstrates why the accused's special plea for no jurisdiction should not be granted. The case relates to a 255 million rand tender awarded in 2014 for the removal of asbestos roofing in the Free State. Magashule and 17 co-accused have pleaded not guilty to charges including fraud, corruption and money laundering. The EFF is adamant that Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana should resign, accusing him of posing a threat to the country's economic stability. This comes after the reversal of the highly contentious 0.5 percentage point VAT hike, which was due to take effect on the 1st of next month. The party is also demanding the resignation of National Treasury Director General Dr. Duncan Peterse. EFF senior researcher Dr. Kumani Chimomula says Godongwana contravened the Public Finance Management Act requirement when he failed to table a budget before the end of the financial year.
A budget is such an important government instrument to ensure that there's continuity of service delivery, there's certainty in the economy and the market, business people know what they're dealing with. But in this instance, both the Minister and the Director General of the National Treasury, Duncan, are unable to present a credible, believable, and also a budget that will find consensus in the National Assembly and in the National Council of Provinces. And we call for his resignation because as things stand now, South Africa does not have a budget before Parliament, which we can analyze.
The Water and Sanitation Department says it has opened the 5th and 6th sluice gates at the Val Dam. It says the aim is to manage high water inflows that the recent heavy rainfall has caused. The department also says it plans to increase outflows from both the Bloemhof and Val Dams to mitigate against the rising water levels. The department spokesperson Wisane Mavasa has urged those who live near the dams to relocate to safer areas.
The controlled and uncontrolled water releases at all these dams will lead to overtopping of riverbanks downstream of the Orange and the Vaal rivers, resulting in flooding of settlements that are in the lower lying areas within 1 in a 100-year floodlines. People living within the floodline downstream of the Vaal, Orange as well as the Bloemhof dams have had to evacuate, and they should continue to avoid these flooded areas as the river catchments remain oversaturated.
KwaZulu-Natal authorities have urged residents to be cautious as the South African Weather Service issues an alert for disruptive rains in various parts of the province. The rains could lead to localized flooding. The current floods in various places in Durban and surrounding areas are causing major traffic delays. ALS paramedic spokesperson Gareth Jamison.
The hotspots being the M19 Amgeni Road, underneath the Into Bridge, North Coast Road near Mimosa Road. We've had reports of the M4 by Riverside severely waterlogged, And then the common spots of the M13 coming down Fields Hill was very wet. M19 and the M7 are extremely wet and dangerous. We'd like to urge all motorists to please leave a little bit earlier. Please only proceed if you have to your destination, as well as ensure that your windscreen wipers are in a good condition, as well as your tires.
Scientists in Hawaii have discovered a rare carnivorous caterpillar that feeds on insects caught in spider webs and decorates its silk case with their remains. The insect has been dubbed the bone collector. Researchers believe it uses its prey's remains as camouflage to avoid detection by spiders. Dan Rubinoff from the University of Hawaii explains the significance of the discovery.
In the case of these caterpillars, maybe down the line, understanding the genomic basis of how insects see the world, sense the world, use things is going to be helpful for conserving them, but even more importantly, maybe for pest control. And we'll be able to spray non-toxic things onto crops that prevent pest caterpillars from recognizing them as food.
Recapping the top story, the High Court in Bloemfontein has granted the former personal assistant of the former Free State Premier, Cathy Mohlahlana, her request for a trial within a trial in the asbestos case. I am on Delambana for SFM News Headlines at 11:30.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.6 FM in Palabora.
Rise and Shine are not willing to drop their heads as they chase victory to maintain a good top half position. But Matatsansa Pitori are in a deep hunt for 3 points to escape from danger. Catch the exciting battle of Mzansi's football, Polokwane City FC versus Supersport United FC on Saturday, 26 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Then at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
In an apartment far, far away.
Mara Springs is not that famous.
Who's the narrator here?
Sorry.
Exists a room dedicated to who Morena refers to as the GOAT. From his very first soccer boots, right down to the shirt that he wore in his final World Cup, Morena has it all. Ask Morena anything about the GOAT, and the answer will roll off his tongue like second nature. Morena is not just obsessed. Morena is the GOAT's super fan.
Uswile boy, it's me, super fan.
Yeah, sure, boy. Tune in to Superfan Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. on S3 and watch contestants compete in challenges related to their favorite artist, ultimately lip-syncing to determine the ultimate superfan. S3.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
It's an interesting time with regard to the Trump administration.
South Africa, 60%, 30%, and they've got some bad things going on in South Africa. You know, we're paying them billions of dollars, and we cut the funding because a lot of bad things are happening in South Africa. The fake news ought to be looking at it. They don't want to report it.
Of course,
everybody's doing a calculation and speculating on what could be included. The safest thing to do is to get confirmation from the US as to how they arrived at the number.
The African countries almost have to think of what I would call the coalition of the wounded, looking into various countries and saying who has been badly affected by the US and how can they open up the room for engagement on that.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Dr. Ila Manga, who's an integrative medical doctor, brain flossing. What is it and who needs it? I've heard all the terms before, never heard this one.
We accumulate mental clutter
Okay.
just through everyday life experiences. It all kind of accumulates in the nervous system. So brain flossing is essentially a daily practice that supports our mental hygiene and our wellness and allows us to tap into our capacity for attention, for listening, for coming up with creative solutions, for thinking more clearly, for feeling more calm and focused.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Weekend View with Bongiwe Swane. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomoto KG Mwekezi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Sundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Kherika. Shifting Your Lens with Bertha Charuma. This is SAFM, the Friday Wind Down. Kick off your weekend the right way.
Meet Maria. Meet her family, the Ramirez. One wrong step and they will have you swimming with the fishes. Meet Amadeo, a trained lawyer and member of the rival business clan, the Mateus. The two fall in love and Maria's dreams of a happily ever after change when Madeo is murdered at their wedding. Their daughter, Jo, despises her mother's humble beginnings and will do anything to steal all of Maria's fortune. This is the world of Sweet Diva. Airs weekdays at 4:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
El Clasico is here. Barcelona takes on Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final. And you can catch every moment on S3 or stream live on SABC+. Watch two of the world's biggest teams fight for Spanish football's ultimate trophy. Don't miss out on the heart-pounding action. Head to sabcplus.com to register right now. Or tune into S3 on Saturday 26 April at 9:30 p.m. for the live broadcast. This is the Copa del Rey final. Barcelona versus Real Madrid. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport, your home of great football. For the love of the game.
SAFM music, crafted to make you feel real good. Handpicked just for your pleasure. Classics sounding so good only on SAFM.
Friday Wind Down. Kick off your weekend the right way.
It is absolutely the Friday wind down. And you know, it's my favorite part of the week because we not only get to do what is very different to what we do every single day, but of course we do it with very talented South African artists who come on air and they share their talent with us. They share their artistry with us. And we just end up, the show feeling so good and appreciating the work that they have done. So you would have heard from the song that we've already played. It's called The One, that we're taking a bit of a shift from what we normally do, even on the Friday wind down. You heard those house tunes. Don't pretend like you didn't hear what was going on. Our Friday wind down guest today is a deep house DJ producer. He'll tell us about who his inspirations have been. He'll tell us about what has drawn him into the music industry. But first, let me just officially introduce him and welcome him to the platform. This is not his stage name, his ID name. This is what you find on his ID. At least I hope so. Or is this another name?
No, it is. It is actually. That's what you find.
So his name is Edgar Mfaba. He's a DJ and producer, but he goes by the name Ed Soul. Ed Soul, good morning to you.
Morning, Cathy. How are you?
I'm well. It's so great to have you in studio.
Thank you.
With us. So do you like it when people read out your full name, or do you just prefer Ed Soul?
I'm actually quite used to Ed Soul now, or Ed. When people say Edgar, I'm like, who are you talking about? Yeah, I'm like, who are you talking about? But it is my name, and I respond to it.
How did you get to Ed Soul?
It was primarily the music that I was kind of like I grew up listening to, or the music that was surrounding me at the time when I was like a kid. My mom grew up with a singing mom in the house. She played a lot of soul music, like your Anita Baker, Stevie Wonder, the likes, So when
Mama loved the blues.
Yeah, most
soul,
definitely.
Blues.
Most definitely. So when I thought of a DJ name, and then thinking about the influences and also the type of house music that I gravitated into playing, for me it just made sense at the time to just take the soul and put it next to the two first letters of my name, which is Ed. Yeah.
One of the things I'm always curious about is if I reflect back to my younger years, which seem to be getting further and further away, but that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
And I think about how during high school, almost every other person, especially male in high school, thinks that they are a house DJ. Like that's just how it happens, because playlists are being put together.
Yeah.
There are competitions over who compiles the best and who did this and who did that. How does that morph or evolve from part of the hobbies that young people get involved with to being something that that this is now a passion? This is now something that I'm pursuing.
I think for me, I'll just speak for myself. When growing up, music was something that I was always surrounded by. I'm actually very introverted. Like even growing up, I stayed at home a lot, listened to music a lot. I used to be the guy that used to like write lyrics in the book and sing them back, So as I grew, I started interrogating in terms of reading the back covers of the CDs, or trying to find out or research who's actually making the music, and it fascinated me that these people were the ones. They were putting together sounds, and this is what was coming out. Until I actually found out what the title is, sound engineer or DJ, producer, and I started gravitating to wanting to be that. Went on into like my high school years, and then bought my very first set of turntables, with a bit of assistance from my mom and some lunch money, and started practicing at home, and then officially did go to like a DJ school to learn the fundamentals of DJing, beat counting. They teach you basically how to be a DJ. So that for me, that's how I kind of like gravitated into becoming, the DJ. But from playlists, even at home, they'd be like, "Hey, music," or put together music for us. So I used to be the go-to guy, and also a bit of dancing. When you're a kid, like I was jivele, So I used to be that entertainer.
You used to open the circle.
Yeah, I did.
Really?
Yeah. But now it's like something I can't even do anymore.
I can't see you do it though?
Yeah, no, but for me, dancing is you just have to have rhythm, hey? Like rhythm and know how to move to a beat, and that's it. I was telling someone the other day about like a TikTok challenge. It doesn't take much to do like a TikTok challenge. You must just be in sync.
So you're one of those who can kill a TikTok challenge.
Yeah, I can. Well, if I learn the move, obviously now it's like it doesn't catch me immediately.
Don't come with excuses. Don't come with.
But I can learn it.
It's either you can
I
do
can,
it
no,
or
I
you
can
can
move. I can move. Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay,
Even when I play, I'm very
you.
flamboyant. Like when I DJ, I don't like standing around. I move the music. You know, I'm part of the set. You know, that's why in most of my sets, you'll find a party when I'm playing. There's like literally maybe like 10 people on the dance floor.
Yeah.
And then after like maybe 20, 30 minutes, there's like, it's full or packed. But because people are gravitating to the energy that I bring to the dance floor, besides just playing the music, you know, it's part of the motion and everything else.
So now, how did you convince mom that, okay, I've had these turntables, I've been doing my thing, you want to know what I'm going to study, ne? This is what I'm going to study.
It was quite difficult, man. Look, I really appreciate my mom for allowing me to do this. She literally said no in the beginning, even after I bought the turntables. And I told her I'll do sound engineering first, and I'll go back to that. But she was like, you know what? Let me allow you to do this, because she didn't understand how do you make money, like especially at the time that we grew up. How do you make money? It just doesn't make sense. You DJ and then they give you money. How? But then I started proving by doing small, parties here and there in the neighborhood. I started playing clubs very young when I was like 17, 18. Started DJing with a friend of mine at the time. And she started seeing that actually this is something that can, you can make a living out of it. And then she was like, you know what? I'm not going to deter you. I'm just going to allow you to do whatever you want to do. And I trust that you'll do it. And another thing, I think she also saw the passion that I had for it. I think that fire that burnt inside of me, for her, it was a confirmation to say, you can make it work,
Would you say that it takes quite a while to build? I mean, this can obviously be true for any career. But a lot of DJs, like you're saying, will start out in the family and then it'll grow to the street where, when people are having parties, you're the go-to guy. Yeah. And it expands the network from there. There are people who never grow beyond that, who never move beyond that. And I'm curious, just from your own journey, what you have seen and what it was that was able to lift you up out of just being, the community DJ.
I think for me, it was learning the craft beyond what I knew, because at the time you could still research stuff on the internet, but it was going to study the craft, attending classes, whether it was DJing or sound engineering. But I also realized that for you to kind of create some sort of longevity, you also have to be doing it for the right reasons. Because sometimes if you are focused on the wrong things, which is maybe money or the fame, or it comes with the ladies, you know what I mean? If you focus on that fills us, like it literally fills us out, So what is at the crux of what you're doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? And for me, the passion, obviously drives me. The fact that I'm a hard worker, like I literally just focus on outwork you, that's what I normally do. And then I also started realizing in my later years, just talking about longevity, that you also have to diversify. You can't stay in one pocket, like I call it the pocket. You can't stay in one pocket and do the same thing. So I do like a myriad of things. Like, you'll find me DJing, like I said, DJing. I've got an events property. I'm a sound engineer. I run a media agency. There's quite a lot of things that I do within the space just to diversify. Obviously, I'm not there all the time. Then you must find people, like for instance, publicists, and, a PA. Eventually you can afford such things, because also when you start learning the nuances or the fundamentals of running basically if you start running yourself like a business, and just a friend of mine used to always say, have structure. as long as you have structure, yes, fine. People take time to get used to structure, especially if you just do things, willy-nilly. But I feel like if you do have structure and you know why you're doing it and you're passionate about it, you can create some sort of career around it, and certain things do take time. Like I've been in the game for over 15 years now, but I haven't been doing the same thing. I've been in your shoes where I was doing presented a house music show at some point for 5 years, released music, running a label.
It's a journey.
Yeah,
it
is. It's a long.
You sort of have to embrace
there we go.
everything that it comes with.
Yeah, I call it long game. It's a long game. Yeah, even now to the point where I am. If I didn't do all those things, I think I wouldn't be able to handle everything that I'm in right now. Whether it's the event that I'm doing soon, or all those kind of pressures that come with it. Also understanding that people are different. Also dealing with people, it's a very technical thing. Humans are very special. It's a But essentially, I think it's you just knowing that it's a long game and you must be in it for the long haul. Yeah.
Our guest today is Ed Soul, a deep house DJ, music producer, and I think you can just add clips there, ... because there's so much more that he does, as you can hear. We're going to continue with more of him, and of course, I know you want more music as well, so we'll do that on the other side of the 11:30 news headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. On the news headlines, the High Court in Bloemfontein has postponed the asbestos case to the 5th of next month for the start of a trial within a trial. The South African Red Cross Society says its disaster management teams are attending to a large number of communities that inclement weather has affected in various parts of KwaZulu-Natal, and the EFF is adamant that Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana should resign, accusing him of posing a threat to the country's economic stability. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
After a 0-all draw in Mzansi, the Pyramids are confident they will complete their agenda with victory on home soil. But Rivero's boys believe they will end their long-distance trip to Egypt with an impressive performance. This is the second leg semi-final clash of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Experience the thrilling encounter of African football. Pyramids FC versus Orlando Pirates this Friday, 25 April at 7:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC 2, and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. The wait is over. I've been hustling, grinding, and now it's time for the glow up you've been waiting for. Unapologetically, May the Bay. From the grind to the glam. Anele Zondo The Glow Up on Saturdays at 8 p.m. only on SABC 1, Mzansi for sure.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Dr. Ila Manga, who's an integrative medical doctor, brain flossing. What is it and who needs it? I've heard all the terms before, never heard this one.
We accumulate mental clutter just through everyday life experiences. It all kind of accumulates in the nervous system. So brain flossing is essentially a daily practice that supports our mental hygiene and our wellness and allows us to tap into our capacity for attention, for listening, for coming up with creative solutions, for thinking more clearly, for feeling more calm and focused.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Celebrating our music heritage right here on the Friday Wind Down.
your love, all over my body. Makuthanda till eternity, baby. Hey, hey, hey. I feel the love, I feel the love, I feel the love. Sithanda nokwamathuba. No, 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 no. Mina nawe. Sithanda nokwamathuba. You're the reason I wake up in the morning. Hey, hey, hey. I feel the love, I feel your love all over my body. Yeah. Makuthanda till eternity, babe. Hey, hey, hey. I feel the love, I feel the love, I feel the love. Sithanda nokwamathuba. No, 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 no. Mina nawe. Sithanda nokwamathuba. Angifuna ukungasho ukuthi you're the magic I've been waiting for. Baby, you're the one for me. Never gonna let you go, never. You're the reason I wake up in the morning. Hey, 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 I feel the love, I feel your love all over my body. Makuthanda till eternity, babe. Hey, 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 I feel the love, I feel the love, I feel the love. Sithanda nokwamathuba. No, 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 no. Mina nawe. Sithanda nokwamathuba.
And that is Mina Nawe. Our Friday wind down guest, Ed Soul, is in studio with me as we learn more about his journey in the deep house world, but also everything else that he gets up to. You know, I've always wondered, Ed Soul.
Yes.
In order to be a good DJ, do you need to have a deep understanding of party culture? And do you have to be... how do I want to frame this? Do you have to be a partyist yourself?
Like a groovist.
A groovist. Thank you. That's the word. That's the word I was looking for. Do you have to be a groovist yourself?
No, I think no. I think you just need to know the music. Number one. When I'm saying know the music, meaning know what you're playing, whether it's old, new, what's currently playing in the club. So you somewhat have to do a bit of going out. So I like to go out to clubs just to hang out sometimes, because some songs actually start in the club and then get to radio. Because remember, DJs are like A&Rs, like, you know, they PR the music for you before it actually gets to the masses, you know. So I'd say no, you don't have to be a party goer, groovist, but just know your music and know how to attack certain crowds. You know, my sets are very different from crowd to crowd, but obviously because I also play from an artist point of view, so meaning I have to play some of my music within my set. I kind of like structure it in a point where I try introduce some of my songs, but if I get to a vibe and I can see it's vibing, like I start with them first, because that's what you do as a DJ. You serve the people and then you encompass what you also know, you know, or give them something of the unknown.
Okay, so you do have to have an understanding of
the culture,
the party culture.
Yeah, somewhat. Somewhat. I know DJs that actually don't even go out, but would get to a club, because nowadays you can even just research that on Spotify.
Yeah,
like you can go to top 100 songs, and literally detail. Like let's say select top 20 songs, and you know for a fact that they'll pop at a party. You know, maybe just get there 30 minutes early to make sure the previous DJ is not playing the same songs as you, and then you rock the ones that he wasn't playing. You know, but yeah, you have to kind of be part of it. You know,
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about, doing research and, maybe just going to like your top 100 songs. I've noticed that with DJs, what they'll do is that they'll start with maybe your popular songs, and then they'll go and then they'll play songs that you don't know, and then the crowd is just like hanging around, waiting for the next one that they know. Some DJs will maybe come back with another one just to get everybody going again.
Yeah.
Others are like, I have put the set together. This is the hill on which I will die.
Yeah, dancing.
How do you balance that?
I actually recently started creating my own edits of popular songs. You know, so I've got I call them bootlegs that I create to kind of be part of the culture. You know, so if I sense it's a hot song, I'm like, how do I add my flavor to it? You know. If not, then I find a flavor of another DJ, because producers do that. It's like someone else will like probably remix the song, then I'll take their flavor and encompass it in my set. So the way I kind of grab the audience is playing some of the familiar music, but maybe my version of it, and just keep them in the groove, you know.
Who are the DJs that have inspired you?
Sure, quite a lot, man. Locally, when I grew up, I listened to a lot of Oskido. He used to have a show back in the day called Church Grooves.
I remember that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I religiously grew up on that show. That's where I actually found out about certain things, like, listening to that show, and then fell in love with the likes of Vinny Da Vinci, Greg Maluka, DJ Christos. They actually inspired me to become who I am today. Vinny was telling me the other day, it's like, my man, you used to bother me. As soon as you got my number, you used to like call me and check on where I am every week, as if you were my PA.
Were you following him
Yeah,
around?
I was. He's like, yo, this guy, as much as he's proud to see where I am today, and then internationally, a huge mentor and influence in what I do today. Louis Vega, back in the day there was Alex Alvarez, Mr. V. Another guy locally back in the day, DJ Monde. I actually got to meet him personally. I just liked how he presented the music, or how he played. He always played from the heart.
What makes a good DJ? And I know this is like a very naive question, because I often feel that sometimes DJs are more involved in what they're putting together than perhaps is notable to the ordinary man. There are people who have a deep understanding of music and will listen to sets and will say, oh, this DJ, yes, this one is like really, really great. Look at what he's doing here and there, whatever the case might be. But for most people in the crowd, a lot of that stuff is going to be lost on them.
Correct. Yeah.
So what makes a good DJ in your view?
I think for me, what encompasses a good DJ is track selection, knowing your songs. Like I literally am an advocate for that. You need to know your songs. So what I mean by that is, if there's a break at some point of a song or a solo, you need to be able to play not mashing your vocals together. The timing is very important. I mentioned track list. Syncing the songs together, so meaning the energies, I also am big on that. How do you, the one guy that I used to look up to, Louis Vega, or still look up to right now, used to say to me, group the songs in your set, so it doesn't become like jigsaw almost when you play. So the more you play the familiar sound within a group, then you can segue into the next one. So I think for me, if you have those attributes as a DJ, it encompasses, and also be able to read the crowd. Very important. Read the room. Some DJs nowadays, no one wants to play opening sets. They want to play at 10 or 11 o'clock or 12. And those are the sets where you get to learn how to read the crowd. You can't be playing Berimarung at like 7 o'clock, you know, when you know there's a headliner that's coming later on to come kind of do the same thing, you know. So I think it's that's also very important, knowing how to read the crowd. So I say those things are the things that make you a good DJ.
How is technology affecting your trade and affecting your industry? Because what we know now is the fact that it's become easier for people to put together sets. If you know how to use AI really well, you probably don't even have to lift much of a finger. You just let it do a lot of the thinking for you. Yes, of course, it won't be the same. But the point is that it's becoming easier and easier to do it. And on the other hand, there's also influences, the rise of influences. And that's how that is affecting the sector as well. That tomorrow I decide I'm going to X Club, and you know we now have DJ Cathy in the house.
And the time you're a talk show host. I'm like, how?
Exactly. You see what I mean? You know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
There was an interview I was watching the other day. The guy was like, in South Africa we got too many DJs actually. You know, people just sit there bored and go, I want a DJ. You know. I think technology, man, has been to advantage, obviously, and been to a disadvantage. You know, it's a two-way. It's a two-way, rather. You know, it's made us, from a collector's point of view, everything is very quick. Before vinyls, number one, vinyls were very heavy. The equipment was quite heavy when you go into a gig. You know, now you carry I use SD, USB drives. Some people carry flash sticks, you know. So it makes it easier for you to play the music. The other downside sometimes is that where people collect their music, I also am a big advocate for that. Like, you can't strip music from YouTube, for instance. Buy the music, you know. There are a lot of sites that you can buy music from. So do it properly, you know. But I think, you're right. Technology has definitely affected DJing a bit. I saw the other day, there's a big brand, a DJ brand, that has partnered with, a streaming site, where now you can actually just take your playlist and go DJ using equipment.
Sure.
Yeah. So imagine that. So that is even worse because
it's an over-influence. The saturation in the market then.
Yeah. But also within that, then, like you spoke about influence, you know, there's certain things that were not important back then that are quite important now. You know, from a brand perspective, how do you build your brand better? You know, whether it's from a look. I know DJs that look better, but they just focus on looking good. And they get gigs, you know, or people are kind of gravitated to that instead of the music, you know. So I think there's also, with the influence that you're speaking about, there's a lot of ways to kind of skin the cat within the disadvantages that the technology has brought within the industry.
Sounds like you've got to be keeping on your toes.
All the time.
Yeah, sure.
All the time. Like now, like you said, you need ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, I want a set.
You can tell it right now. It will give you a list of songs. And it will ask you, is this correct? Or which one do you want? And you're like, some R&B in there, please. This tempo.
I'm not going to lie. I love ChatGPT, hey? You can never make me hate ChatGPT.
No, I love it too. It's a great tool, man. I love it too.
We're going to take a quick break. It's Soul is our guest on the Friday Wind Down.
From the shows that bring us laughter to the moments that inspire us, your SABC TV license makes it all possible. Every license paid supports local stories, top talent, and the programs that unite South Africa. Pay your TV license today. Visit tvlic.co.za or your nearest retail outlet. # your screen, your story. Together, we make it happen.
Catch Color Your Plate this Tuesday evening at 7:30.
I want to see family in your meals. I'm just watching how nervous they are.
The atmosphere is intense.
I'm so overwhelmed today.
I'm panicking right now.
I just made a big mistake.
It looks like we've got a little thief because ingredients are going missing.
It's a me and you thing, okay? Don't tell anybody.
That's Calliope this Tuesday evening at 7:30 only on SABC2. El Clasico is here. Barcelona takes on Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final. And you can catch every moment on S3 or stream live on SABC Plus. Watch two of the world's biggest teams fight for Spanish football's ultimate trophy. Don't miss out on the heart-pounding action. Head to sabcplus.com to register right now. Or tune into S3 on Saturday 26 April at 9:30 p.m. for the live broadcast. This is the Copa del Rey final. Barcelona versus Real Madrid. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport, your home of great football. For the love of the game.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
It's an interesting time with regard to the Trump administration.
South Africa, 60%, 30%, and they've got some bad things going on in South Africa. You know, we're paying them billions of dollars, and we cut the funding because a lot of bad things are happening in South Africa. The fake news ought to be looking at it. They don't want to report it.
Of course, everybody's doing a calculation and speculating on what could be included. The safest thing to do is to get confirmation from the US as to how they arrived at the number.
The African countries almost have to think of what I would call the coalition of the wounded, looking into various countries and saying who has been badly affected by the US and how can they open up the room for engagement on that.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo. Celebrating our music heritage right here on the Friday Wind Down.
It's that time of a Friday where I must ask, where did the time go? It feels like the show just started, a couple of minutes ago, and now already we have to get ready to start saying our goodbyes. Ed Soul has been our Friday Wind Down guest, and I generally am not an avid house music listener, but it's been nice playing house music for this hour. It's taking me back to my high school days. That's what I can say.
Your grooviest days.
How much grooving could you actually do in high school? Like, just how much could you do it in high school? But I think it's like you're saying, because there was so much house on TV everywhere around us. That was sort of the music that you didn't have a choice but to grow up with it. So Ed, let me give you an opportunity to tell us about some of the projects that you're working on that you especially want people to be aware of.
The most prominent one, which is what we're faced with in a couple of weeks, is my event property called Soleil Sessions. It's Soleil Sessions featuring Louis Vega. It's happening on the 17th of May at a venue called The Campus in Bryanston. Like I mentioned earlier on, Louis Vega, an artist, DJ, producer that I look up to, and someone that's been a mentor and now is a friend. It's been a long time coming, booking him. I've been trying for about 7 years. I started this event property 5 years ago. And last year when I hit him up around September, October, just to let him know that, I think next year is the time for you to come down, but for me to bring you down. He said, I'm going to call you, and I want to make sure that you're sure about what you're about to do, because the conversation is going to change, because we're from, bro, to, hey, you're signing a contract, So he sat me down and made me realize how serious of a thing this is. And he also, shared some very nice words of how proud he is, because he told me why he said no all those other times, because he was waiting for me to learn a lot, and he feels like right now is the time. So that event, like I said, is happening at the campus in Bryanston. People can get their tickets at computicket.com. We had about 3 phases that we're selling. Phase 1 is sold out. Phase 2 is sold out. And we're currently sitting on phase 3 that people can actually get right now at CompuTicket.
Yeah, and the Forum is a stunning venue.
Oh,
so I'm
beautiful.
sure you're going to do lots with it and lots with the event.
Yeah.
Because it's a full circle moment for you as well.
Huge.
Will you be playing too?
Yes. I'm also on the bill. I'll also be joined
Will you
by...
be paying yourself?
A friend of mine, actually, a business partner of mine, said, "Hey, you better pay yourself, Chief, because I'm not going to do it." So, yeah, I'm going to be paying myself a fee as well. We'll also be joined by the likes of Glenn Lewis on the lineup, Kitchen Mess, DJ Kent is part of it. And we'll also be announcing other, quite amazing acts and artists that will be joining myself. And also Louis Vega, because he's also worked with some local artists as well, the likes of Msaki and the songstress Busi as well. Kalo has also done a song with Louis Vega, so people must just be expecting like very, very nice surprises. And one thing I do want to say is that we're putting a lot of effort in the show. He's quite, I don't want to use the word demanding because I'm learning a lot, but his standards are quite high. Like, when you book him, very, very high standards. So we are meeting every standard. I'm trying to not cut any corner from an experience point of view. So, right now the ticket is quite pricey. But I should let people know that they won't doubt themselves when they purchase the ticket and they are at the event. We're working really, really hard to make it an experience and a half.
Worst case scenario, just blame it on the venue.
Wow.
Just say, guys, you can see the Forum. You can see.
Give on.
How do you think we must pay for all of these? The windows and the ceiling and everything is sort of just singing and dancing around you. Don't take the blame. Blame the venue. It's been a pleasure having you in studio. Thank you so much for coming through to spend the hour with us. We wish you all of the best. So you heard there, 17 May. That's one of his big upcoming events, and he's asking all of you house lovers to please come out and support that project.
Thank you so much, man.
We're going to be wrapping it up with Can Do Better.
Yes. This is a song that I'm currently promoting at the moment. I got a chance to work with a producer. If people know, I don't know if people know Harrison Crump.
Yes.
International DJ producer and songstress Wanda Baloy, and also a young producer called Jazz K22. So this is my current song that's out. You can get it on all DSPs. It's a beautiful song, and I am honored to be on the same song with Harrison Crump as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
It's all of the best. Not only with your career, but of course with the big event that you have coming up soon. Ladies and gentlemen, have yourselves a good weekend. If you're out on the road, it's another long weekend. Please travel safe, and we will be back in each other's company next week.
Since I've told you just how I feel, living in society where nobody is really real. All these different people around me, nobody I can really trust.
It's 12 o'clock on Friday, the 25th of April, 2025. A very warm welcome to Update at Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour,
calling attention to St. Francis of Assisi to symbolize his commitment to humility, simplicity, and the care for the poor.
the Catholic Archdiocese of Pretoria is hosting a solemn requiem mass in honor of Pope Francis, who died on Easter Monday at the age of 88. And the Office of the Health Standards Compliance Board has expressed concern over patient safety following fire outbreaks at Tembisa Hospital. Coming up in sport.
I dislike all eyes, but most eyes are going to be in Cairo today. I'll tell you why. And there's plenty of other sports to tell you about, including some rugby that we're going to hear from Jake White.
Love it. And that's how we get into to the weekend. John will give us the details of what we can watch this weekend. And of course, we always want to hear from you, so please share your views with us. 41391, that's the SMS line number. You'll be charged R1.50 per SMS. You can also write to us via X at SABC News_radio, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 082-692-3909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Friday edition of Update at Noon. First, though, the latest news with Mohlahlana.
Thank you, Sakina. Top stories at this hour. Court postpones the asbestos case to next month, and EFF calls for the resignation of Finance Minister. For SAFM News, I am Mohlahlana, and a very good day. The High Court in Bloemfontein has postponed the asbestos case to the 5th of next month for the start of a trial within a trial. Judge Philip Lopsa this morning granted former Free State Premier Ace Magashule's former personal assistant Murwadi Cholota's request for the trial within a trial. The aim is to test the court's jurisdiction to try her. Cholota was extradited from the US in August last year. She has been adamant since then that South African courts cannot try her due to the manner in which she was brought back. The case relates to the 255 million rand tender awarded in 2014 for the removal of the asbestos roofing in the Free State. Magashule and 17 co-accused have pleaded not guilty to charges including fraud, corruption and money laundering. Kamohelo Sikoi reports.
This development adds another layer of complexity to the already contentious proceedings. Cholota, once the personal assistant to former Free State Premier Ace Magashule, has been a central figure in the case. The judge's decision significantly impacts the timeline and the outcome of one of South Africa's closely watched corruption cases. Kamohelo Siekwi, SABC News, Bloemfontein.
The South African Red Cross Society says its disaster management teams are attending to a large number of communities that inclement weather has affected in various parts of KwaZulu-Natal. Disruptive rains are already falling after the South African Weather Service issued a level 4 warning. The affected areas include Umkhanyakude in the north and those along the coast, including the eThekwini in Durban. The disruptive rainfall is causing localized flooding, which is severely damaging infrastructure. Siyabonga Tlatrayo is from the Red Cross.
The South African Weather Services has issued a weather warning of disruptive rainfall up to level 4. We are urging the public to be very cautious on the roads, not to move unnecessarily. Stay at home, stay safe, and report any flooding incidents to disaster management centers and report any incident as soon as possible.
The EFF is adamant that Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana should resign, accusing him of posing a threat to the country's economic stability. This comes after the reversal of the highly contentious 0.5 percentage point VAT hike, which was due to take effect on the 1st of next month. The party is also demanding the resignation of National Treasury Director General Dr. Duncan Pedersen. EFF senior researcher Dr. Kumani Chimomola says Godongwana contravened the Public Finance Management Act requirement when he failed to table a budget before the end of the financial year.
The budget is such an important government instrument to ensure that there's continuity of service delivery, there's certainty in the economy and the market. Business people know what they're dealing with. But in this instance, both the Minister and the Director General of the National Treasury, Duncan, are unable to present a credible, believable, and also a budget that will find consensus in the National Assembly and in the National Council of Provinces. And we call for his resignation because as things stand now, South Africa does not have a budget before Parliament, which we can analyze.
The mayor of the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, has suggested that the country may have to temporarily give away territory as part of any peace deal with Russia. Klitschko says the Ukrainian people would never accept a permanent occupation. The BBC's James Landale has more details.
The United States wants Ukraine to accept Russian occupation of parts of eastern Ukraine in return for a ceasefire. President Zelensky says Ukraine could never recognize Russian sovereignty over annexed Crimea. But the mayor of Kiev has become one of the most senior Ukrainian politicians to suggest publicly his country may have to give up territory, albeit temporarily. Vitaly Klitschko said that would be an unfair and difficult decision for President Zelensky, but it might, he said, be a painful solution to achieve peace.
Researchers in Finland say the effects of smoking, drinking too much and not exercising enough are felt by the age of 36. The findings are published in a study that tracked several hundred people for more than 3 decades. The scientists found that risky behaviors had relatively little effect on the subjects' health in their 20s, but the consequences took hold by their mid-30s. The researchers say their work shows the importance of switching to healthier habits early in adulthood. They say it's never too late to change. Recapping the top story, the High Court in Bloemfontein has postponed the asbestos case to the 5th of next month for the start of their trial within a trial. Judge Philip Lobza this morning granted former Free State Premier Ace Makhashula's former personal assistant Morwadi Cholota's request for the trial within a trial. I am on Delambana for SFM News headlines at 12:30.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
Thanks so much, Ondela. Good afternoon, everybody. It's 8 minutes after 12 and appreciate you tuning in to Update at Noon. Well, Vladimir, stop. That's what Trump had to say after the Ukraine was once again rocked by some attacks from Russia. And you know that the Ukrainian president was in South Africa 2 days. Was it yesterday? It was yesterday. He was here yesterday. Had to leave, of course, because of what is going on in his country. And this, of course, is what's happening. And Trump admitting that it seems to be harder than he initially thought it would be to actually find peace in the Ukraine. So it's going to be an interesting one. And of course, we're keeping an eye on that. We're keeping an eye on what's happening in other conflict-ridden areas of the world. And at the same time, also watching what's happening in the Rome, the Vatican making final preparations for Pope Francis's funeral that will take place tomorrow, and large crowds of people filing through St. Peter's Basilica to view the open coffin as Pope Francis lies in state, and that will come to an end today in preparation for tomorrow's funeral. Protests against the ongoing war in Palestine outside the American consulate in Cape Town. Protesters are demanding an immediate end to the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people and the imperialist policies that sustain the war. So those protesters, that's what they are saying, and that's what they want, among others, and also a full unconditional ceasefire to end the military support for Israel, as well as the ICC's arrest warrants for Israeli leaders accused of war crimes to be effected by the United States. And then the health service regulator will conduct a risk-based inspection at the Tembisa Provincial Tertiary Hospital in Gauteng. That's following 2 outbreaks in less than a week at that particular hospital. And then the police ministry, led by the Deputy Minister of Police, Castle Matale, along with the Deputy National Commissioner of Crime Detection, and some of the Gauteng and Johannesburg leaders are in Eldorado Park today. They are there for community engagement purposes aimed at creating a platform for effective interaction between police leadership and communities to address crime-related concerns and policing needs in the area. And I listened to a bit of that, and it was quite interesting because, you know, when you generally listen to communities and their complaints, very often you will hear about the trust deficit with police. And what I thought was interesting today was those who are working closely with the police, and there seems to be a sizable part of the community, are saying that the police are doing a fabulous job. They just do not have the requisite resources. But then, of course, there are then others who feel that the police are failing them hopelessly, are in the pockets of drug lords. But I thought it was interesting that there wasn't a single narrative emerging from what the community was saying. And one of the people who took to the podium to speak actually called on the community to say, we need to take responsibility, because you know your child has a gun. You know what your child is up to. And then we want the police to deal with all of these matters. So it was very interesting, some of the takes coming from the community there in Eldorado Park. And then, of course, a few court stories that we'll be following up on, as well as the merger. Residents of JB Marks are expected to embark on a march calling on the erstwhile Tlokwe and Ventersdorp municipalities to be demerged. So we've got Sintle Englehi here on that story. So we'll try and bring you as many of those updates. And also it's a Friday, so Martin Creamer will have an update from the coalface.
April is Freedom Month, a month to reflect, celebrate, and